Hello, and welcome to More to the Story with Molly White and Mary Browning. And we are so glad that you're joining us today for our live show. Mary and I felt it was very important to come on here today and talk about the debate between President Trump and President Biden, especially with their positions on the pro life issue. And so we just didn't want any more time to go by on this topic without us giving our 2 cents worth, right, Mary?
That's exactly right, Molly.
And it needs a response. And, you know, when Biden says things like, he's not for late term abortion and that abortion is health care and abortion is a been a constitutional right for all these years. Those things are just really not true, are they?
No, they really are not. And I think that's in the Dobbs case, that's one of the issues the justices addressed was the fact that actually abortion had never been in the Constitution. So regardless of the precedent, regardless of the decision of Roe v. Wade in 1973, the Dobbs court made it specific abortion isn't in the Constitution. And in fact, it isn't. But protection of life is in the Constitution. I think that's sort of where we got off track over 50 years ago now, and where we're trying to, as a country and a nation, to get on track, back on
Right.
track again.
Right. You're absolutely right. Even in the preamble to the Declaration of Independence, I believe it's the preamble, where it says we've all have God-given rights. And the first of that is the right to life for us and our posterity. And posterity, Serena's on here. Hi, Serena. Good to see you. Our posterity is all of the generations that are going to be born to us and from us. So it's really our children and our future children have the right to life. And, back in 1973, we know that the Supreme Court made a bad ruling. They just, we don't know what was in those justices' minds, fear of women. I don't know what was in their mind, but there was really um, no nothing in the Constitution that gave a woman the right to have an abortion.
That's right, Molly. And certainly the court was, I think, unaware of what we know today. And that is really the harm of abortion. And one of the things you and I, and one of the reasons you and I we speak out about the harm of abortion so that the public will know that this is not healthcare, and it
Right.
is a circumstance, a situation that does create long-term negative effects in the lives of those of us who have experienced abortion. And I don't think the justices at the time in 1973 knew that. I think actually they thought they might be doing women a favor, and in ruling the way they did. And in looking back at it now, knowing what we know, they were just misguided, and they were reacting to the fervor at the time in terms of what people said women wanted,
Right.
rather than what women really needed, which was for the father of their baby, or the man, somebody in their lives, to help them and support them and say, we can come alongside you in this
Exactly.
pregnancy.
Exactly. You're exactly right, Mary. And they did not have I guess what I wanted to say, they did have medical research, because I've read medical books written back in the early 1920s, doctors saying how abortion does hurt women, and it causes, not only a physical harm, but emotional harm. And so, there was the medical standing on it. And I don't know if the justice has ever bothered to consult those kind of things, but they also didn't take into consideration that everything that the media was proclaiming about women dying from abortion, women having coat hanger abortions, was all lies. It was lies. It was propaganda in order to push abortion through the courts.
Yes, and Serena, who is watching us
Yeah, I
today,
see
said
her
there are
on there.
so many men and women hurting today. And we know that with over 60 million abortions in this country so far, each one of those had a mother and a father. And
Right.
we know the aftermath.
Yeah.
We work with organizations and entities that are in the business of helping people recover from the harm of abortion, one of which is She Found His Grace, who's watching us today. So thank you, Serena. And we'll put a plug out for you, because if somebody is listening to this and you have had abortion in your past and you've had some what appear to be misfortunes in your life, but you've never connected the dots for yourself, you might want to give healing a try in this area and see. One of the
Right.
things I was unaware of was how abortion does affect your ability to sustain intimate relationships in the future. And I have yet to have a successful marriage. So I am still on the road to healing, but that's I didn't even realize that was a potential side effect. Certainly not back when I had my abortion, and even for years didn't attribute the challenges I was having in my marriages with how I had started my first marriage.
Right. It does affect our intimacy, our self-worth, our value, our sexual life. It affects every single area. And it's so important that, if I feel like there could be a lot of women who are triggered by when Roe was overturned, because now what they did and thought was legal and safe, now it's not legal anymore. What did I do? And I'm sure that probably caused a lot of confusion. But we want to, encourage you that if you're triggered, if you're angry by this, if you're upset about this, if it's bothering you anyway, like Mary is saying, and Serena has, we have operationoutcry.org on our website. We have Serena's She Found His Grace healing, abortion healing program uh, on our feed here, that we encourage you to go through healing. It is so important because, like Mary said, you don't know how many ways an abortion decision can hurt you, and until you really start peeling those layers and dealing with it. Now, I want to go back to like President Trump's comments and why a lot of people might, um, were upset about those things. To me, and Mary, I want your legal advice on this, is that it's true. We wanted it. We wanted to end it as a constitutional right and then give states their rights to decide on this issue, even though we don't want states to choose abortion because we know of the harm that it causes. But that's kind of what President Trump was saying. And he was also saying a little bit about certain conditions, that women should be able to have an abortion. For me, I think he just needs to be educated on the issue. I think if he heard a handful of our stories, that would change his mind. What do you think?
Well, I think certainly hearing the truth can make a big difference when somebody hears the truth from people who are willing, who've gone through the healing and understand what the harm that abortion has caused. I think that is important. And if he hasn't heard from women such as ourselves, then it would be great if he would hear from us. The
Yeah,
same with both of our presidential candidates. Well, assuming they both become the delegates, or
right.
assuming they both become the candidates. And we're at this point, having had the debate, there's been some assumptions behind that. But
Mm.
any candidate that's running for any office, but particularly the president of our nation, I would hope would want to hear from people who are familiar with the harm of abortion, because it does stand against the rhetoric that this is all simple, like taking a Tylenol, no problem. You won't
Yeah,
have to worry about it again.
yeah,
And it's just not true,
it's not.
because at the core of this, it is taking of another human life. And that's why we speak out.
Amen. Amen.
Yes.
And we thank you, Patricia Silva Duran. I'm so glad to see you online. But she says she's still going through healing, and she's dreamt of her aborted son. I mean, an abortion decision lasts forever. that trauma lasts forever. That loss lasts forever. Can you be healed? Yes. That's why Mary and I are talking, and so many other women like Serena and Patricia, because number one, we want to educate people on what this decision does to our life, what this experience does to our life. We want to educate them, and we want to reach out and minister to those who are hurting. We want you to enjoy the freedom and healing that we've experienced. And we want you to join us. Our voices matter. Our voices matter. Our story matters. And it will change hearts, and it will minister to others, and it will save lives. And we've seen it happen, haven't we, Mary?
Yes, we have. And, we're talking about the debate from the other night. I do want to say, as President Biden was speaking, he made the comment of he was going to turn, if he was elected, he would turn the nation back to Roe v. Wade. And
Yeah,
I just want us to be clear about that. The president doesn't have the authority to turn the nation like that one way or the other. It requires a lot of other pieces of the puzzle, just like the justices that corrected the wrong decision in 1973, the justices in the Dobbs case who said, abortion's nowhere in the Constitution. And in that decision actually chronicled all the, in an appendix, all the states and what the laws were in place. In most states in our country at the time, abortion was a crime. It
that's right.
wasn't that it was in the
That's right.
Constitution as a legal, viable way of proceeding with a life decision. It
Was a
was a
crime.
crime. You could face serious
Yeah.
consequences if you were involved in an abortion. And so I just want to say, too, that these are both candidates who are wanting to get elected, even as I think candidate Trump mentioned, he said something about, well, he talked about exceptions and then said, well, we want to get elected. We want to get
Mm.
elected. So I think we have to remember that some of this conversation is happening on the backdrop of trying to find the
Hmm.
support for the position to get elected. And so all of this, we do want to really sort through what do we believe a candidate truly thinks and how they would lead our country. And is it consistent with what we believe are the principles that we were founded on and that make a
Right.
difference to
Amen.
us?
I'm going to just give a shout out real quick. Serena has posted a phone number to call if you've been hurt by abortion, even if you're considering one. I would encourage you to call 574 400 5272. She says there is someone that will talk to you in person. And I just want to throw that out there and thank you, Serena, for putting that on there. And thank you for
Thank you.
Serena's heart. I mean, she found his grace, through her own abortion trauma. And God has just anointed her to, God taken her through that healing, but anointed her to rescue those or to comfort those with the same comfort she herself received in her healing. And so we want to thank you for putting that up there, Serena. And our stories do matter. And not only do they matter because of what we experienced, but it gives dignity to our children. We cannot forget that we lost a child
Yes.
through an abortion decision. And that loss affects us even today. And Mary and I were older. But like I've mentioned before, even though we might have gray hair now, our abortion still hurt us. And now we're looking at grandchildren
Yes.
that we will never be able to hold and love and take care of because we've aborted that child. So it's a generational experience, it's a generational trauma. And it can be generational if you don't deal with your own abortion, if you don't heal from that, if you don't come to terms with it, how it hurt you and how it was wrong. And even it's a sin, it's a sin against the Lord. He created us to be life givers. But if you don't come to terms with that, hint and heal, repent and heal, then it can follow your living children. They may follow that path of abortion, and it might can continue through the generations. And so we hope that you stop that generational curse, generational issue in your life so you won't pass it down to your children. So yeah,
We
let's
certainly
go
do.
back and talk about, um, you were saying a president can't influence abortion decision constitutionally, but he has a great impact on the country, just like President Trump. President Trump
That's
was the
right.
most pro-life president we have ever had. Ever. I mean, Ronald
That's
Reagan
true.
was too, but Trump was able to put some more extremely conservative, not just conservative, but they're constitutionalist. They don't have a political agenda. Their agenda is to follow the written Constitution as our founding fathers wrote it and intended for it to mean. And then you have your moderate and your liberal justices that kind of think the Constitution is living and breathing and it can morph into something you want it to be. So when I say a conservative justice, I see a constitutional scholar, a constitutional justice who makes all their rulings, whether we like them or not, based on the Constitution. And so Trump was able to do that for us. Biden, of course, and the Democrats were livid about it. But we believe, and I believe, if we get Trump back in office, I think he'll continue to do the right thing as far as the pro life issue is, that he's not going to interfere with states. But we hope to educate him. So if you have any connections out there, we hope to educate him through the power of testimony how his belief system could, in fact, hurt more women and men and family members.
Well, we do know abortion is a hot topic, and it's a
Mhm.
hot topic in this election, whether it's for the president or any other position. But we do hope that those that are listening, if you don't have abortion in your past, that you would find an opportunity to listen even to some of our previous podcasts where we've interviewed and we've had people talk about their stories. We do talk about our stories. We won't be talking about them in detail today because we really just wanted to go live today to say we know abortion is a hot topic right now. It is important to understand really the perspectives of each candidate and particularly.
Oops, we kind of lost Mary for a minute. I think she froze up a little bit, but it is a hot topic. And in the two candidates, President Trump, former President Trump, and President Biden, are polar opposites in their abortion, positions. President Trump's, more pro-life with exceptions, but I think we can persuade him on that issue through testimony. And then Biden is radically to the left. And he may not say so. He may have said that, making abortion legal, it's not going to lead to late term abortions, when that's not true. What they're trying to do in a lot of states, and what they're still trying to do constitutionally, is make abortion on demand a right, and there's no limits to it. And we have seen that in some other states. Welcome back, Mary.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, I agree, Molly, that I think we have yet to really fully understand for the states that have voted on including abortion in their constitution as so that it is considered a constitutional right. We have yet to fully appreciate how much that has under in the process of going through that undermined other laws that have been on the books for many, many years that do protect life and that reflect the majority of our country's perspective on at what level and what measure of protection should we be providing to young life, the youngest life among us, the most vulnerable. And I think that's important for us to really think through that as these constitutional amendments are being offered and put in on the ballot for voting, that people need to understand exactly what that might do and do the research on it, because what is being said is often not actually what will actually be the truth about what the impact will be. So as we consider that abortion being a hot topic in this election season, there's a lots of pieces of the puzzle, including our presidential candidates, sure, are carrying the right ideology that we want to support.
Exactly. And I've heard someone say, and I was looking on my phone because I know there were some articles out there that I would kind of wanted to refer to about, different states and the abortion issue. But I've heard someone say that whoever controls the language controls the outcome. And we want you to be very discerning when it comes to language, especially if you're living in these states where the abortion initiative can be on a ballot issue, to vote on. They usually say reproductive rights. Well, that means abortion on demand. Reproductive health care, that means abortion on demand. Reproductive freedom, that means abortion on demand. So you've really got to define and get the definition of the language that's being spoken out there, especially from the pro-abortion industry, because they've always used deceptive language. They've always misrepresented facts. They've always misrepresented truths. And so we have to be very discerning. And a lot of these states, Mary, that you were mentioning, um, they want abortion on demand, and they want to remove every restriction. And what does that look like? That means an abortion clinic doesn't even have to follow standard medical cleanliness, standard medical care. You don't even have to wash their instruments. We don't even have to keep their bathrooms clean. I mean, we're talking about every regulation that's ever been passed to protect women's health and protect women from, experiencing back alley abortions, which to me, they're all back alley abortions, will be wiped off, will be wiped away. And women are not going to know that. Voters are not going to be know that. And that's why it's important that Mary and I felt it important to come on here and educate you on that and talk about it. And we encourage you to invite your friends. I see Serena on here, Patricia on here. Hey, put it on Facebook. Let people know that we're having this discussion so that they can tune in and maybe learn something. I mean, who was it that said? I think it was our dear friend Joyce Zunis, who has passed and is now with the Lord. Said something that do you think you think your decision is made about abortion? Well, think again. Do you have all the facts? Have you heard the testimonies? Have you done your research? So this is kind of what we're here with. More to the story is we want to give you more facts, more testimonies, more research to educate you so that you can make an educated decision if you're living in these states. I was on Facebook earlier. I think it was Lila Rose's live action Facebook page, and she made a comment about pro life, and someone said something about, well, my reproductive choice, and so I just said, well, what does that mean to you? What does that mean to you, and what do you think? Do you think you have to have the right to have an abortion, kill your child, to be equal? I don't see how that makes women equal. I don't see how that liberates a woman when it actually is counter to that. It's hurtful. And so those are kind of the things that we need to just educate people on and get them to thinking. What does this mean to you? Do you think killing your own child is going to liberate you, going to empower you, going to set you free? It's not going to happen, is it?
No,
Oh, Mary's froze up on us again. I don't know if you're having bad weather there, Mary, but we're praying that you come back on. But Patricia Silva Duran wants to share her number. I don't know if you want me to say that out loud, Patricia, but you've got it on the screen. But she would like to tell her story and the dream she had after the abortion that led me to become pro-life. So if you want to contact her, her number is 830-443-5774. And I'd encourage you to get in touch with these women. We're willing and wanting to share our experience, our true life, real life experience, because we want to protect women and girls from this trauma. We don't want you to go that route. We want you to have your children. There's help for you if you're pregnant out there. There's all kinds of resources, all kinds of help for you to have your baby and to parent your baby. I always encourage parenting, but if that's just not possible, if it's something that you just can't do, then there's adoption. And there's all kinds of ways that you can place your child for adoption. Closed adoptions, open adoptions, working and selecting the parents and the family, meeting them. There's all kinds of beautiful ways that you can do that. Plus, your expenses are going to be paid. And so, there are options, but there is help for you. It's not a desperate situation. And I want to make one more comment before you jump in there because I'll forget. Someone said abortion robs a woman of love, the opportunity to love and be loved. And that really struck a chord with me. It might have been Serena who said that, because it's so true. Because when you give birth to a child, you're going to experience a love that you have never dreamt about, that you would never feel in any other situation. Am I correct, Mary?
Molly, I remember I did birth my first daughter, and of course, childbirth is painful. And I remember thinking during the process, nothing can be worth this. The minute she was there, it was like, oh, yeah, she is so worth
Well,
it.
okay.
Okay, I didn't know.
I changed my mind. The pain is gone. All of a sudden, the pain is gone. She didn't think you were going to make it through. And there's the reward. Children, God calls children a reward, a blessing, an inheritance.
Yes.
And it is, and that labor is worth going through. My daughter gave natural birth to 5 out of 5 of her children, and I was blessed. She thought, with the number 4 child, which she thought would be her last child, she let me participate or be there, during her labor. She had the baby at home, and it was such a blessing for me because I really never saw a live birth. I mean, I gave birth to 2 children. Triplets was my first ones, but I was put to sleep with them. I never saw a live birth. And then with Natalie, I was so doped up and there's covers. I never saw a live birth. But boy, was it amazing. Was it amazing? My heart for her as a mother, but all of a sudden it was done. And there's this beautiful reward, you know. But you were going to say something before I interrupted you
Well,
earlier.
I think when I got disconnected, you were talking about something that I wanted to mention to the listeners, that this idea that abortion is the woman's choice,
Mm,
because as we have heard from a number of different women, we've had our own experiences. Abortion is often not the choice of the woman that actually goes through the abortion. And over half the women who have abortions, it really is not their choice, and it's not their first desire, and it's not the course that they want to take. And I think that's part of the story, and why we do more to the story is
yes.
because people are unaware. Even in my situation, it was similar in the sense that someone else wanted me to have the abortion. I
Mhm.
didn't fight for our baby, but I would have loved to have had a receptive response and
Right.
support, and even telling my parents or whoever needed to know next. And that's just one example. I'm just one example. So we know of lots of other examples, and the statistics that we see are like over half of the women was not their
Right.
choice.
And it's not, and it really is. Roe v. Wade even had in their decision that it was illegal to force, pressure, or coerce a woman into an unwanted abortion, but yet we see that as the majority of all abortions are forced, pressured, and coerced, and it could be from an outside party, a parent, the father of the child, a school teacher, a principal, a coach, a boss, all kinds of factors, and she could be coerced into doing that. But even inside the abortion clinics, I have not, and I've talked to hundreds of women. I know Serena on here has well. I know Patricia has well, and you as well, Mary. We have listened to hundreds and hundreds of women's testimonies, and I have not heard one woman who went to an abortion clinic, whether Planned Parenthood or a derivative of it, that said they were given other options, that they were counseled in all of the options available for them, that even when they were in there crying and uncertain, they were still um, persuaded to go through with the abortion. They were still given false information. They were, the clinic staff was going to do anything they could to make sure that woman did not leave there without an abortion. And I
That's
just
right.
heard, I think you and I heard, I think, Terrence, if you can put that afterabortion.org link on here, I don't know if you can, or you can put it in our Dropbox or something. But I was involved in a documentary years ago. I think it was called After Abortion, right? Life After Abortion.
Life after.
And there was, oh gosh, what, over a dozen women, maybe more, who shared their testimonies. And Carol Everett was on there, and Carol Everett had an abortion, but she started working for, worked in the abortion industry. In fact, she owned a clinic, and her number one goal was to become a millionaire. And she sold abortions. She goes, if that woman was coming into my clinic pregnant, she wasn't leaving without having an abortion. So that's another form of coercion. It's another form of coercion when you're not given all the facts, when you're not given all the information, when you're not given the other resources to make a well thought out, educated decision, that's coercion. That's my opinion anyway, Mary.
Yes, and as you're saying that, I just remember reading an account recently of a woman who had an abortion and discovered that she wished that she hadn't. Years later, she realized this was a baby. The baby would have been formed. All the things that we learn as we've gone on, and certainly the science has improved. So now we know so much more than we did earlier on. But in that woman felt almost hesitant to come forward with her own regret and her own coming to terms with what had occurred in her own life, because she felt like she would be disappointing or letting down the women who had fought for the right for abortion.
Oh,
And I think
wow.
it's important for us to hear sort of the whole story, is that even someone that might have thought they were in favor of abortion, pro-abortion, and selected that in their circumstance, then later discovered and regretted the steps they had taken, how they don't feel comfortable coming forward because of the backlash they might get, or the people who would be disappointed in them.
Oh,
Or
wow.
it made me think of, it's interesting because it's very different, but I don't know if anyone's ever seen the documentary Jagged Jaws, I think it's
Mm,
titled, but it was women who went on a hunger strike, one in particular, for suffrage, for the right of the woman to vote. And I
wow.
thought, well, that's different. Having your voice heard is very different than the kind of choice that we think of when we think of of because a woman's identity is to be a mother, to be nurturing, and the safest place by God's design for the baby is in her womb as the baby grows, the
Amen.
beginning place. And so that's an identity piece of this that I denied, that I didn't embrace. And so we know others of you are out there, and we do hope you will call Lines for Healing, look for support after abortion. That, I think, specifically really has a good program for men. So if you're a man who has paid for an abortion, encouraged someone to have an abortion, driven someone to get an abortion, or even know that you have lost a child through abortion, there's help for you too.
Amen. And bringing up other people that could be involved in an abortion decision, Mary, there could be friends, aunts and
Yes.
uncles, grandparents, um, sisters and brothers. I mean, there's so many that could be involved in that abortion decision that they are hurting too. Once they come to terms with that, once they realize, and sometimes it's immediate, but once they realize that they were a participant in that abortion decision, then they start struggling with their own emotions and their own regrets, their own guilt. And so support after abortion, and I'm sure She Found His Grace, these two programs, I'm sure have recovery resources for your situation as well. And then on operationoutcry.org, we have a list of abortion recovery resources for people too. And that kind of reminds me, I know we're a little off a track about the presidential debate, but I think we're still on track. Is that I went through a training with Dr. Philip Ney in Canada, and the training was on dealing with childhood trauma. And abortion was a big factor in that. And two things I want to say. The first one is he drew a big pie in our training, a big circle on a chalkboard, and then he said, uh, "Who's responsible for your abortion?" So he's talking to the people in the group. Who's responsible for your abortion? Well, every one of us who had one just put, "Well, I am." And so he drew a little piece of the pie and he put you. He goes, "Well, who else is responsible? There's a big old piece of pie left. Who else is responsible for your abortion?" And we were like going, I never thought about that. I've taken the whole responsibility in my own hands. Well, what about the doctor? What about the abortion clinic staff? Did they give you full information? Did they, whatever? What about the father of the child? Was he supportive? What about the parent? I mean, what about the law firms? What about the legal profession, the medical profession? And he really divided this piece of pie into lots of different pieces. And he goes, now you're 100% responsible for your piece of the pie, but there's other people responsible for that piece of pie as well. Even the church, the medical community, the legal community, the educational community. There's so many people that are responsible for one woman's abortion that we encourage you to take a look at that as well. And what can you do? Repent,
Point. It's a good point, Molly.
seek forgiveness, seek healing if you need to. I know Norma McCorvey, the Roe of Roe v. Wade, she had to go through a lot of healing after she came to Christ, realizing that she was personally responsible for abortion and the loss of life, the loss of those children, and the harm it did for women. And Abby Johnson, I had the honor of meeting Abby way back when she came out of her Planned Parenthood clinic. She was a director of Planned Parenthood here in Texas. And when she left that business, shortly afterwards, we met at a conference. And she came up on stage and apologized to us women. And that was very moving. And it's very healing, when she realized, what was going on with her part of it. And it was very therapeutic for us as the women and for her to confess that, you know. So
That's
we
causing me to think that if there is someone listening that knows of someone that's just discovered they're pregnant, and the pregnancy was not planned, they may just need a word of encouragement. They just may just need something from you that says, you know what, I know you can do this, and I'm willing to help and offer what you can, because that we've learned for a lot of women. If anyone would have said, look, you can do this. You're not too young. Your circumstances are not too dire that you can't bring this life forward and then move on with your life, whatever that might look like. So,
Amen. And it's true. And we've said this before, never make any kind of decision out of fear. Out of fear and
that's
what
right.
ifs,
Yes.
because normally we all, when we start acting in a state of fear, our minds are going to go into self-protective mode, whatever we can do to escape, the possibilities of what we're afraid of. And we never make a good decision that way. Never make a good
That's right.
decision out of fear. Think it
That's
through,
right.
get some advice. And I want to encourage our listeners too, if you've never watched fetal development, I encourage you to Google it, because there are some incredible videos out there that show from the sperm, fighting its way to the ovum and penetrating in every second detail of the development of a human being inside a mother's womb. It is fascinating. It is fascinating. If I would have known that, I would not be in these shoes today. If I didn't know anything about fetal development, I would never have had an abortion. I asked about fetal development when I went into the clinic, when I made an appointment, and the woman had a pen and put a dot with a pen on a piece of paper and said, "Oh, it's just a teeny tiny clump of cells." Well, she lied to me. The baby had a head, a body, arms, legs, fingers, toes, a beating heart, blood flowing through its body. That was deception, that was a lie, that was fraud. But if I'd have known about that and been given the truth, I wouldn't be in these shoes today. I'd have my children with me, you know, and wouldn't have gone through the trauma. So education, watch, learn, understand what's going on inside your body when God creates another human being in you. And it's really an honor to be a mother. It's an honor to create another human being in our womb. I asked my daughter one day when she was pregnant with one of the babies, and she was laying on the couch and not feeling too good. And I said, "What's the matter? What's going on?" She goes, "Oh, I think I'm creating a liver today." Or she was talking about something, the baby developing in her. She goes, "I'm creating a liver today, and I just don't feel so good." But it's cute. It's really amazing, and we want to be positive about pregnancy, and we know too that uh, a lot of women who have an abortion, a safe, legal abortion, are never able to get pregnant again. They've either aborted the only child they'll ever conceive, or they'll miscarry and miscarry and miscarry because maybe their cervix has been damaged, maybe their uterus has been damaged, maybe their fallopian tubes have been damaged. But we know too many of those sad stories, don't we, Mary? Too many. I think Mary's froze up on us again. But that's a risk. It's a terrible risk from uh, what they call safe and legal abortion, what they call reproductive freedom, reproductive rights, reproductive health care. No, reproductive health care is to help you reproduce, not to help you uh, abort your child, kill your own child. That is not health care. And pregnancy is not a disease. So we're hoping Mary's going to jump back in here and join us again. But I wanted to ask my Mr. Producer, he has put on our stream there, our chat, the um, link to Life After Abortion documentary. And Terrence, if you can post that live here for us, we don't have too much time left. We're actually going a little overtime, but we would like to kind of see that. Thank you. He's got that link to that documentary on there. Kind of screenshot it or whatever you can to so you can remember it. But this is such a well done documentary that breaks down segments of each woman's testimony into categories, and you'll be blown away. I was in it. This was some years ago, but when I watched it, boy, I even got emotional and choked up because of hearing other women's pain and what other women have gone through. But we feel like this documentary, if you want to use it to educate lawmakers in your if you want to post it on your Facebook page, all your social media sites, I'd encourage you to do that. I encourage you to go to our Facebook page and our website and all of our social media sites and even YouTube. Our producer has broken down 1 minute testimonies. I don't know how many they are, but he has broken down a bunch of testimonies into 1 minute sections, and you can share those and share them far and wide. Because let me tell you, Revelation 12:11 says, "We overcame him," that means Satan, "by the blood of the Lamb and the word of our testimony." And we have Patricia saying that she had high risk pregnancies with her two daughters. Abortion ruins health, especially if you plan on getting pregnant again. And that's so true. And Patricia, I'm so sorry that happened to you. I suffered as well. I had damaged cervix. I had endometriosis. I had developed a huge, I was pregnant with my last daughter and pregnant with her, and I had a tumor almost as big as she was as well. Thank goodness it was benign. But after my daughter was born, which was a miracle, I think, that I was even able to get pregnant with her, because I'd lost a child between that time and between the triplets and her. But um, I had to have a full hysterectomy. My body was so damaged, my uterus was so damaged because of abortion, that I had to have a full hysterectomy and never being able to have children again. So there is health risks involved with legal abortion. And legal abortion is no different than illegal abortion, is it, Mary?
No, it all causes trauma.
And it's all done the same way. I think now they've developed a pill to do that, and we've talked about that many times on our show, and we'll talk about it again because the Supreme Court did come with a ruling. You want to just, Mary, we're going longer than we thought, but since that, do you have time to kind of break down what that Supreme Court ruling meant when they ruled in the FDA case?
The Supreme Court did rule that the doctors and the associations of doctors that had filed the action against the FDA for bringing the chemical abortion pill to market and for lessening the protections for women and girls that would be prescribed that drug. The Supreme Court said that the doctors and associations didn't have standing. The harm that they were seeking redress for from the court was the harm that they as physicians were experiencing as they were required to respond to the emergency situations to the women presenting themselves with partial abortions from the pill, and
Incomplete.
also
Yeah,
from
incomplete. Mm-hmm.
and the hemorrhaging and the sepsis when pieces of the baby are left inside the woman and she develops an infection. So they were having to do what I would call the cleanup work for the woman who didn't have a physician, who didn't have anybody following her. If it's healthcare, nobody was following her and her health to see that things went well and that things proceeded in the way they had been anticipated. That pill does, it's known that 1 out of 25 women will go to the emergency room. That's what we know. We also know that many women are advised not to tell the doctor, if you do go to the emergency room, to not tell the doctor that you have attempted a chemical abortion through pill. And if when you don't tell and just tell you're having a natural miscarriage, so you get a different type of health care with the doctor only having partial information. And so, but the court said the doctor's harm wasn't enough, and it wasn't directly related to the FDA's approval of the drug, and then the relaxing of the protective. When the drug came to market, the FDA required certain protective measures on behalf of the woman or girl that would get the drug.
Because
The
they knew
FDA
it was
has,
dangerous, right? They knew it was dangerous, and they knew it
yes,
could cause these problems. And so, like any kind of drug, there's a protocol to follow. Mm-hmm.
and over the course of time, the FDA removed all those protections for women and girls. So it may be a surprise to the listeners to know that there's no age requirement. So if a child just got her period, and somebody gives her the abortion pill, then there's nothing to keep the drug from being prescribed to a child.
That's right.
Even a young girl, if she's pregnant, of course, we hope that she isn't in that position, but we do know there's trafficking, we do know there's sexual abuse and assault, and so we can't.
And there's abortion abuse, like you were mentioning. I think we can call that abortion abuse when someone else orders these drugs and gives them to an unsuspecting pregnant woman who she
Yes,
doesn't suspect that to happen, like maybe a teenager, or
yes,
given to a teenager. And the fact is, they don't even have to see a medical doctor. You don't
no,
even have to go in. And like you said before, Mary, that research says that over 50% of the time, a woman is wrong on her gestational age if she's pregnant.
yes,
And so
yes.
you don't really know how far along you are. But go ahead and kind of explain a little bit, finish what you were saying about,
Well,
those measures and the
some of
rules.
those protections were that there would be an ultrasound, or actually there was no requirement of ultrasound, but there was a requirement that a doctor, and that sort of does say if the woman and the doctor are coming together, the doctor is doing something to see how far along is the baby. Is that ultrasound? Is that physical exam? Whatever that is, because the FDA said this pill is only safe if the baby is not more than 7 weeks gestation. They relaxed that to 10 weeks gestation, but also removed any doctor from the equation. And so you don't have to have a doctor. You don't
You
have
don't
to
have to
have
have
any
an
type.
ultrasound. You don't have to even have a pregnancy test. You know, you might
No,
not even be
really.
really pregnant. you
You
know.
can order it online. We know that it happens all the time, but the FDA protocol does require telehealth so that you might have a phone meeting. But what we've heard other people on the podcast talk about is that is really ripe for abuse, as you say, abortion abuse, somebody else getting the drug, giving it to someone. We've seen some news stories about in the about fathers of the baby.
Giving his wife. You froze up a little bit, Mary. So there's a case here in Texas where a couple were going through, I think they were about to go through a divorce. They were having marital problems. And the husband, the father, was an attorney, but he was slipping these abortion drugs in his wife's drink. And she was, suspicious and feeling
Giving
bad. And
their
so she
wife
recorded
or
him. I think it was a video, and she recorded what he was doing. And then, of course, she filed. I don't know. She filed charges on him. Mary, is that what happened?
she did. She filed criminal charges. Well, she the prosecutor did file criminal charges on him. Her baby was born, but the baby was in NICU more than 6 months. He
Mm,
got a 6 month sentence.
wow.
And so that's part of that's one example. There was also, I think, a nurse who had done the same thing to a girlfriend. And I
Oh,
think it was a girlfriend, but that he didn't want his wife to know that he'd gotten a girlfriend pregnant. And so those are just some cases that are showing up in the news. So we know that that's reflective of there's a lot more out there.
right.
So for those of you listening that have been thinking all the while that abortion is a good thing, or at least having the access to abortion is a good thing, these are stories that you may never have heard because we don't hear them often in the main media in terms of the harm of abortion, the pressure to abort put on women who don't want to even abort their baby, and also the abortion abuse, who's pressuring and then who's tricking the woman into having an abortion.
That's
So
right. And that's really what legal abortion does. It creates abortion abuse. And so we want you to, fight that in your own state. If they're trying to put abortion on a constitutional right, or pass legislation, you need to fight it because it turns into abortion abuse. Because, like I said, the abortion industry, they exploit pregnant women. And if you go there for a consultation, information, appointment, whatever, you're not leaving without an abortion unless you're really strong and
yeah,
determined.
yeah.
And even then, sometimes you might have to fight your way out the door. I don't know, but I know that's a money making business, and they
Yes.
want to make as much money as possible, and it opens up the door for abortion abuse. Well, Mary, we're going to close because we've been here almost an hour, and I thought we could do a
Yes.
30-minute show. But this Supreme Court ruling on the FDA case, it doesn't mean that the abortion drugs are safe. It doesn't mean that it's okay what they're doing. It doesn't mean that they can't be sued. They just need to have women who've been hurt, right, by taking these dangerous abortion drugs. Louisiana, our neighbor, passed a law, and the governor signed it, calling these dangerous drugs the RU486, and I can't remember the legal names of them, Mary.
Mifepristone.
Right, are dangerous drugs, and we've heard the testimonies. But it doesn't mean that women, and if you are one of those women and you've been hurt by this drug, you were told it was just like an aspirin, just going to get your period back, and then you're traumatized, you've bled, you've hemorrhaged, you got sepsis, you're traumatized by seeing your baby, that's passed, the cramping, the bleeding. You've been harmed by it, and it means that we can sue them. Am I correct on that, Mary?
I think that's right. Sue not the FDA necessarily, but the pharmaceutical companies that manufacture the drugs.
Right. And I call on Mary for these answers because she is a licensed attorney, so she can speak legally to these things, and so I appreciate that. Well, Mary, thank you. Is there anything else you want to close with besides we need to do everything we can to educate President Trump, candidate President Trump, he's a former president, on the pro-life issue, because I believe this man, I know his heart, that when he hears these stories, when he hears these facts, when he hears that women don't need abortion, then I think he will become solid pro-life. And so that's what we want, is not only to educate him, but to educate all of you as well. So anything you want to say? Thank you, Patricia, for joining in, and for Serena.
Yes.
Yeah, and we hope that you share this on your social media sites so others can listen in and hear the discussion and get educated on it. Thank you, Mary, for taking time out of your Saturday, and
Yes.
Mr.
Thank you.
Producer. I just
Yes.
felt like it's something we needed to do, and I appreciate it.
Yes.
And thank
Yes.
y'all for
Thank
tuning
you.
in. We look forward to seeing you again. Thank you, and God bless you. And we'll see you soon. Oh, you know what? I want to give a shout out to more to the story. As you see back behind me, is, if you can see it, is a Hope Monument statue. It's over here, and this was gifted to me by Beverly Paddleford. If you Google Hope Monument, I think it's hopemonument.org, you will learn the story behind this monument. It's a Jesus and a woman. He's holding a baby, and it's really a kind of a monument for women who've lost children and knowing that they are in the arms of Jesus. And I kind of wanted to give a shout out to Beverly Paddleford and the Hope Monument because they gifted me that beautiful statue. And a shout out to Dr. Steve Hotze with Hotze Health and Wellness Center. Thank you for your sponsorship. If you want to donate to keep this podcast going, to keep our producer paid, we would love your donation. You can go to operationoutcry.org. You will see a donation link there to more to the story. And we would love to have you as a donor and a sponsor. Again, now I'm going to say
Okay.
goodbye again. So goodbye, Mary. Thank you. And
Yeah.
thank you, Mr.
Bye,
Producer.
Molly. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.